Hello. Can y'all hear me just fine? Audio is good? All right, cool. Let's see. Uh, let's go ahead and get this link posted. Just getting it posted up on VGG and on the Discord, on Goobcord. And let's go ahead and warm that up. All right. So, I don't necessarily have anything too crazy planned for today. I'm mostly just gonna riff with you guys. Gonna talk and talk at you and respond to anything y'all say. Let me go ahead and get the right. Yeah, riffing is cool. Launcher of mooses in this economy. Real. Let's go ahead and do that. Get chat a little bit bigger. Very, very janky stream. Do not expect this to be high production. Is that you, Rilo, with the Hebrew text? All right. So, what the background art is already miles above the median streamers. Yes. Yeah, very high production quality here. Only the best. We pump every penny we have into the production quality. Which is to say all $3.47 in my bank account. Yeah, Rilo, we will be finding out this stream. Talking to me over in the fucking Vosh pit. Come on. Come on. My chat, okay? This is the only place where YouTube chat is good. I know. I know. That's a lot of pennies. Now, I was thinking for this stream, probably just gonna chat it up if I can get enough people in here to actually get a steady conversation going. If I can't, then I will either be reading theory, which will only be fun for me, or I will resort to just rambling, just riffing, just saying shit. That's what you people are here for, is me riffing and talking shit. if I do talk about theory, and this is something that I've actually been planning on doing for a little while, defaulting to theory would also be fun. Yeah, that's always my default. I'm so much of a theory cuck that, you know, if I can't hold a conversation, I move straight over to theory, whether on stream or in real life. Uh, you're in, you're in for it. Yeah, yeah, and we're going to find out. We're fucking around, and we're finding out in this stream. So, if I do talk about theory, we're going to be going over probably organizational theory. Um, what you can do in your local communities, how to do it, how to set up resources. Um, that way, I might be able to just clip this shit and turn it into a really scuffed video essay. Yeah. This stream is actually to test you uh for the next few years, okay? If you can make it through this stream, you can make it through anything. Let's be honest. Um but it looks like we only have 2 folks in here so far. So, Moose and Rilo, my strongest warriors. Let's go ahead. Pull some theory up. Let's go ahead and start cooking on this already. I just spent the past like 30 minutes fucking around with my audio. Let's get this right there. Yeah, we're already getting into the theory. It's going downhill so quickly. Let's get chat nice and set up. You guys cozy right there? I know the chat window is blurry as shit. I tried to fix that before I actually started streaming. That's just the way it's gonna be. It's gonna be scuffed the whole time. But that's okay. This is a leftist stream. And I'm not talking fake bougie leftist like Mr. Vaush. Mr. Koczynski. I'm talking real leftist. I'm unemployed. Uh that's pretty much all I have going for me. Need the downward momentum. Yes. Yeah. Falling is still momentum. All right. We got a lot of momentum and we're plummeting. All right. You could be multiple. Yeah. Yeah. You could be having like a little watch party IRL. So let's go ahead. Get this all set up. Now we're going to be on my favorite website for political theory. Can any of you guess which website that may be? Nope, not the Anarchist Library. Let me see. Can I get it working? Is it already scuffed and broken? Come on. Okay, we're already off to a terrible start. Can I do this? There we go. Oh no. Now we're cooking. Now we're cooking with fire. Yeah, we're going to be using Wikipedia. It's Wikipedia time. Still have rambling left. Yeah. Yeah, I could read to you guys while you just stare at Disco Elysium art. I think that's probably the best case scenario for this. All right. So, First thing we're going to talk about, this is kind of the foundation of all of my politics when it comes to actual direct action, which is prefigurative politics. Um, and prefigurative politics is essentially building a new society within the shell of the old, as stated right here uh, by John Wikipedia. Now, the thing with prefigurative politics is a lot of people, they'll hear direct action and they think throwing a Molotov cocktail. That's only half the story. The other part of the story is actually building a society and communities and collectives that are actually capable of supporting people in the here and now. A lot of the time, and this is the problem with a lot of, I mean, if F is, I'm stuttering. If SFM is in here, he would say lifestyleism isn't the worst thing. I don't think lifestyleism is the worst thing in the world, but the problem is just it's not really effective as a movement. And one of the big reasons is because they don't really do a lot of prefigurative politics, at least not in an organized fashion. A lot of the time, anarchists, mutualists, communalists, they will kind of hit this barrier. And communalists less so because Bookchin kind of ironed this out in his theory. Hello, Zamp, or Hamp, or Shamp. I don't actually know how I should pronounce your name. If you can drop the IPA in chat, that would be cool. But, ooh, we got this scooter. Okay. So the problem is, and like I was saying with communalism, Bookchin kind of ironed out the problem with lifestyleism. Lifestyleism was one of the biggest critiques that Bookchin had of far leftism at the time, specifically of anarchism and anarchistic groups. And that was that they were doing political struggle, but that they weren't necessarily building anything. They had a lot of reading groups, they had a lot of potlucks, picnics, that sort of thing, but you didn't necessarily see strong organizations, and especially not organizations that could rival the institutional and social power that capitalist and hierarchical society has been able to produce over the past few hundred years. Right? You might have a cooperative with anarchist leanings, or you might have, a chapter of the Food Not Bombs that has risen to particular heights of notoriety within its locality. But what you don't see is them being able to branch out with other organizations together to, federate in the same way where, down here we're talking about the CNT, we're talking about the Spanish Civil War and Italian autonomism. What we're not really seeing is, I see you, Rilo. Yeah, high meme potential over here in this stream. But the problem is you weren't really seeing organizations that have power. At least not power that we can, I know, kind of punny, capitalize on to gain more and more power so that we can actually rival these organizations. Hey, Small Frog. So, how do we do that? Yeah, who's this dweeb? Nice to see you, Ben. So how do we do that? How do we build organizations and groups, and how do we use the manpower that we have to actually achieve outcomes that will lead to us, you know, actually having uh, any sort of power, any sort of pull. How do we get things done and make things better for people? Moose, I see your comment. I would say to some extent, this may be a result of the fact that there may only be a single anarchic group in a place expecting major metropoles like Dover as a Food Not Bombs chapter. And that's the thing. A good organizational movement doesn't need a lot of people who are ideologically in line completely with the founders of the group. You're starting with stickers. That's pretty good. That's actually a good thing. Doing propaganda is great. You prefer the Zamp pronunciation than the real Portuguese one. That's pretty good. Okay, so doing propaganda is good, but obviously propaganda isn't going to be the thing. Yeah, we are, Ben, we are talking about politics. I'm going to, until we have a shit ton of people in here where we can just shit talk back and forth about stuff, and even then, I'm kind of on a roll right now. I'm going to be talking about modern anarchism and the way that modern anarchists, specifically anarcho-communists, anarcho-syndicalists, and modern mutualists and communalists are going to be organizing and achieving actual change and what that actually looks like. Yeah, favorite flavor of anarchist. So we're talking about social anarchism. Obviously, modern social anarchism has kind of adopted a lot of the features of individualist anarchism. And if you guys don't know what this means, that's completely okay. You don't need to know what this means. But for those of you who do know what this means, don't worry, I'm not anti-individualist anarchism. I've adopted aspects of individualist anarchism into my social anarchist critique and analysis. Okay? So, if you're an individualist anarchist in here, which I doubt you are, we will get to that. But like I was saying to Small Frog, propaganda is good, but it simply cannot compete with the raw power of direct democracy and organization and direct action, which we'll get into a little bit later on. So, what we have here with specifically prefigurative politics is a rejection specifically of centrism and vanguardism. A problem with a lot of more authoritarian teacher, what do both these terms mean? I know nothing about nothing. Okay. Moving on. So, the thing is, with a lot of authoritarian leftists, purely effectiveness or effectiveness within ethical means. Those mean the same thing in anarchism. Effectiveness and effectiveness within ethical means are identical. Within anarchism, there's this thing called means ends unity, which means if you want a specific outcome, you need to achieve that outcome with the same criterion as that outcome. So if I want non-violent outcomes, I have to use non-violent means. If I want an ethical outcome, I need ethical means. Yeah, it's the unification of ends and means. Yeah, we're going over, I don't know who fuck Google is, but comrade, you are welcome here. Yeah, so the problem with well, not necessarily the problem with anarchism, but when we're talking about effectiveness and effectiveness within ethical or moral means, to anarchists, those mean the same thing. Because if I used unethical means, then I wouldn't be doing anarchist praxis. Right? Like if I just go out and I do some crazy shit, or lie to people, deceive people, extort people, exploit people, strong arm random civilians to promote me, steal their money, that sort of thing, which I wouldn't do. That would be explicitly against anarchist ethical practice. And that would betray the unification of means and ends. Yeah, we can't cheat the system like fascists. I'm sorry to tell you, but if you do fascist action, you actually achieve fascism and not anarchism. I know it's crazy. I know it's a big downer, but that's just kind of the that's kind of the way we roll, baby. You know? No, you're okay. That's actually a good point. So, for those of you who don't know a lot about anarchist praxis, and praxis simply means action that achieves actual intended effects that is informed by your analysis and theory. You'll need to digest that for a moment. Okay. Okay. Yeah, guys, we can't be fascists. I I know sometimes you want to be, but we can't be fascists. I'm so sorry. So, I know, I know. I know. I know everyone wants to be fascist, but we're going to have to show a little bit of self-restraint. The virtue of clutching a poison vial in anger. Yes. So, here's the thing. With the modern leftist movement, we have a lot of authoritarians. And a lot of authoritarianism is going to result in vanguardism or at least vanguardist tendencies. And what we mean by vanguardism, let's start the rabbit hole. Let's pull over here. Vanguardism is an idea that derives from Leninism. So, I don't know if you guys can necessarily see that well. Let me try and move chat a little bit. There we go. So, the problem with vanguardism is that you're effectively creating the ruling class all over again. You're creating an institution within the government, within the state, that has absolute power over the working class. And even though it consists or is informed by class consciousness and the consensus of, this is the quote unquote communism that people actually hate. This is actually fascism. So vanguardism is essentially, what if we put a bunch of working class people, and in effect it's not actually working class people, we're actually putting the old bourgeois and the old ruling class just back into power. I don't think it I don't think it actually blocked your comment, Zamp. I think it's just YouTube fucking sucking. So if your message does not show up, just say something again and I'll try and catch it. So the problem with vanguardism is we're putting a group of people into either absolute power or power only subject to and subordinate to some sort of dictatorial power or some sort of like dictatorial congress. Okay. And that's just what we have right now already. Okay. So it's not actually, it's counter-revolutionary. Like I don't know what else to say. Recreating the ruling class is actually how you don't achieve the abolition of class, So a vanguard is a political party at the fore of a population-wide political movement and of a revolution. In the praxis of revolutionary political science, this was obviously written by either a centrist or someone who is an authoritarian. So let's keep in mind that this is written probably from the perspective of authoritarians. It is effectively it is a party composed of professional revolutionaries. Now what this actually means is it's a party composed of politicians, first affected by the Bolshevik Party in the Russian Revolution of 1917. Okay, so if you want a reason to not like something, this is what the Bolsheviks put in place to destroy the revolution. And yeah, this puts into place a dictatorship of the proletariat, a rule of the working class, even though by putting working class people into a position of rulership, you turn them into ruling class people because not every single person is in the vanguard. So you're isolating and alienating power away from the people. I don't understand how Marxists don't understand this. I think this is like, I don't know, they might have like worms eating the base of their brain stem or something. I don't I don't know. Like this is like the least amount of critical thinking you need to break this down. Yeah, vanguardism betrays the writing, as Moose says, vanguardism betrays the writings of Marx. He explicitly condemns the creation of sectarian principles by which to mold the proletariat. Nor are communists permitted to betray other class parties. Yeah, only a small elite is allowed to watch the Mies. Classical Marxists know to stay far, far away from Lenin. Yeah. For those of you who don't know, Lenin is a fascist and is ontologically evil. He was created by Satan to plant brain worms into your mind to turn you in to a slave of authority, for those of you who don't know. And I'm being hyperbolic, but that is the effect of being a Leninist. I'm sorry to say. So if you're a Leninist, in full bad faith, go fuck yourself. Let's get back to actual left-wing politics. So back to prefigurative politics. This is a rejection of vanguardism, a rejection of centrism, and a embodiment of, as it says here, participatory democracy, which is self-explanatory. I don't need to go into it. So for Breens, as it says here, and this is the only like half-scripted bullet point. This is why I should talk about sort of thing. I have gone over specifically this article. Anything outside of this article, I'm riffing. There are Leninists even competent enough to fuck themselves. I don't think so. And I think fucking yourself to a Leninist might be Western degeneracy. I don't talk to a lot of Leninists because most of them aren't smart enough to speak without. Well, one, they're not usually smart enough to speak. Two, if they can speak, usually they're spitting and drooling all over you. So I don't usually talk to a lot, especially because the spitting and drooling thing usually shorts their keyboard, so they usually can't write a lot. I'm surprised there's even any Leninists on the internet at all. In a good anarchist society, we would create means by which Leninists would be able to use keyboards without their keyboards shorting. All right. That's real praxis. So here's the thing. For Breens, the prefigurative politics centers on participatory democracy, understood as an ongoing opposition to hierarchical and centralized organization that requires a movement that develops and establishes relationships and political forms that, quote unquote, prefigure the egalitarian and democratic society that it seeks to create. Okay, so we're kind of pulling in, without mentioning it, the idea of the unity of means and ends. Furthermore, she sees prefigurative politics as strictly connected to the notion of community, referring to it as a network of relationships that are more direct, more personal, and more total than the formal, abstract, and instrumental relationships that are embedded in contemporary state and society. Okay. Let's go ahead and look back at chat. I've spoken to people at the PSL. I don't know how in the name of God they got a table at Pride. Yep. I don't know what they're doing there. A lot of the Leninists I've talked to are well on the outside progressive towards queer people. You know, kind of isolate them in a room and they get very reactionary towards queer people very quickly. PSL was the name of Bolsonaro's party that was shut down. That's pretty that's pretty telling. Ben says, I saw someone in Vosh Discord say that the dictatorship of the proletariat was supposed to be an actual dictatorship in Marxist theory. That's funny because Marx later in life became more libertarian, and so to be a Marxist Leninist, you literally have to just like take a snapshot of Marx when he was soy and ill-informed by action and just ignore every improvement he made after that. Which I've heard Leninists and Marxist Leninists and Maoists and Stalinists just say straight up that like Marx became like got like dementia or something later on, and that's why they don't like him. Moose says dictatorship is sort of metaphorical. It's a rule of the working class, but it isn't necessarily a single person heading a state. Yeah, dictatorship is very metaphorical. It simply means that the working class is in total power, which to do so in the way that would create actual communism, you would need to abolish all class, which means that you can't have a working class ruling class distinction, which means every person needs to have equal power. Okay? There cannot be authority of one person over another because that would create a relationship in which one person is effectively in a state of rulership over another. Obviously, if we get into the weeds of that, there are, yeah. Moose says, or Rilo says, dictatorship of the proletariat is when there is only one proletariat and he rules by dictatorship on the rest who are bourgeoisie. That's exactly what dictatorship of the proletariat means. Ben Temple says, well, you also have to believe that Marx can't be wrong. I think the translation from Old German has a factor in that too. Yeah. So, yeah, the problem is that vanguardism, Leninism is just a sea of fascism, anti-intellectualism, and I mean, you guys talk to fascists. I don't have to fucking preach to you people. There's like 5 of you in here, and you're all pretty based. So, anarchists around the turn of the 20th century clearly embraced the principle that the means used to achieve any end must be consistent with that end, though they apparently did not use the term prefiguration. For example, James Guillaume, a comrade of Mikhail Bakunin, wrote, how could one want an equalitarian and free society to issue from authoritarian organization? It is impossible, right? I can't enslave people and then force them to be equal in every facet and then just abolish me as the slave owner because I was just forcing everyone to do what I wanted. We need to create a society from the ground up that is built on these principles and in which the people are essentially practicing this of their own free will. All right, without any sort of, extensive coercion. Not necessarily Ben, who said, would this be an argument against the use of political violence then? Because political violence can be determined or defined in different ways. Like, where do we draw the line between what is self-defense and what would be effectively like political violence in like an offensive attacking sense, if that makes sense? Savvy, you know, uh, like if someone's holding a gun to my head, okay, I'm completely within my rights to spin around, karate chop the gun out of his hand, and fill his chest with lead. Yeah, retribution beyond proportion is far too much. So, like, someone steals a loaf of bread and I shoot him in the kneecap, right? Because even though he's stealing my food and I might starve because of that, that's excessive use of force. I did not need to shoot him in the kneecap. Okay. Same thing, like, if we're able to carry out some sort of, like, insurrectionary revolution, which I don't advocate for. One, because it's illegal, and two, because, good luck, buddy. We wouldn't go around and kill every person who used to be bourgeois. Okay? That's insane, for one. And if you think that, you should check yourself into a mental hospital, or see a therapist. And then two is because they can't hurt you anymore. Okay? Insofar as we're doing, like, some sort of hypothetical insurrectionary revolution, insofar as we're doing some sort of hypothetical insurrectionary revolution, we're not actually, like, if we take all of your money and your guns away from, like, some, like, super crazy rich far right dude, as long as he's not going to come at you, like, with his bare hands, you don't have to do anything. Like, once you've neutralized a threat non-violently, or at least as violently as needed to neutralize that threat, you're not going to go around doing, like, revenge killings on the bourgeois. Like, that's crazy shit. Okay? In the same way where, like, if someone commits murder and then they drop their weapon and lay on the ground, you're not going to run up and shoot them. Okay? They're laying on the ground. Right? So, the unity of means and ends talks about that, and that's the thing with violent action. Yeah, Moose says, if we're doing revenge killings, then I'm so getting the axe. Ben says, so an anarchist would say they want a world without unethical violence, ergo, you should only use violence in a self-defensive way. Absolutely. Yeah. You can't attack someone and that be okay unless it is in either self-defense or defense of another. Like, you can defend other people, is the thing. And that's another thing. Like, if you're being exploited at work, it would be excessive violence to go and attack your boss. Like, that's insane. Like, you only use action insofar as it liberates you, right? Like, you can't ballistic missile your boss's house because he's not paying you enough, right? What you should do is organize with your fellow workers into a union to then, have some sort of collective power against him in the institution so that you can get a higher wage and, fix exploitation, or do some sort of factory sit-in or anything like that, right? There are a billion steps you could take before thermonuclear bombing your boss's house. All right. And I'm only saying that because it's so hyperbolic that there's no way I get in trouble for it. And I'm also saying don't hurt anyone. If any federal agents are watching, I am anti-violence. I am a pacifist. Or I guess a neutralist, I guess. Rilo says, my high school history teacher, who was the first Marxist I have ever met, asked us once, is there ever a justification for using violence? Yeah. Like, there's so many more things you can do before violence. But Rilo goes on to say his answer was, when there is no democracy, for democracy is the system which protects your rights. I think violence is only necessary when it is literally the only thing you can do to achieve the means. And even then, like, if violence is the only way, maybe you want the wrong thing. Obviously, I define violence as being, like, assaulting, like, not defensive violence. Who says, how do we draw a line between the defense of others and a group of individuals having a monopoly on this justified violence? That's a good question. The problem is I don't know what an anarchist society, what any particular anarchist society would do. I would say, like, if I just invented an anarchist society in my head, I would say, like, no, like, because everybody is entitled to aid in the defense of a group, we're not necessarily creating a centralized body that has a monopoly over that justified violence. So I would say you would want to prefigure organizations and federations and societies that specifically disincentivize the monopolization of violence by a centralized group. Does that make sense? Hey, wrestling. Yeah, Ben who says I would say a political revolution could be self-defense in some contexts. And I think political revolution is an act of self-defense of the working class and of the people against those who are committing violence through exploitation and authoritarianism over them. No, you're okay, Ben. Yeah, makes sense. Good. I have the veteran anarchist over here giving me his seal of approval. Yeah. Small Frog says humans are really bad at violence against other humans unless trained or at the press of a button. Pretty much. Rilo says, but what if I really want to test my thermonuclear bomb and my boss's apartment is the... Hello? It looks like my connection dropped. For a second, am I back? Are we back? Okay, now I am. Cool. Yeah, that's shitty Arizona Wi-Fi for you. And I am using Wi-Fi. I do not have Ethernet because I'm like 30 feet away from my modem. So yeah. When it comes to violence, non-violence, all that sort of deal, I think obviously the ideal would be that we train people to be able to carry out defensive actions. And obviously some of that defense can not necessarily be like, you know, defense where like we're attacking a group of people who is planning to hurt people, but obviously, communities should be able to organize a group that, let's say there's a school shooting or something. Obviously, there are some instances where specifically assault, in the sense of like in a military sense, assault tactics could be used in a defensive way, right? To defend other people, if that makes sense. Right? Um so yeah, that's kind of my 2 cents. Yeah, violence is bad if the vibes are off. So let's go ahead and go back to this. One of the greatest examples during the 20th century in this regard is the comunismo libertario, libertarian communism, society organized by the anarcho-syndicalists such as the Confederation National del Trabajo, or in English, the National Confederation of Labor. For a few months during the Spanish Civil War, workers took collective control of the means of production on a decentralized level and used mass self communication as counterpower in order to give useful information on a wide range of options, going from vegetarian cooking to the treatment of sexually transmitted diseases. The concept of prefiguration later came to be used more widely, especially in relation to movements for participatory democracy. It has especially been applied to Italian autonomism in the 1960s, the US anti nuclear movement of the 1970s, which was soy, and 1980s, which was still soy, and the anti globalization movement at the turn of the 21st century. Yeah, anarcho syndicalism, woo! Okay, buddy. Okay. We don't really need to look at this, but David Graeber mentioned, um, so I will be reading David Graeber's opinion and nobody else's. So you're saying condoms are revolutionary? They can be. They can be. Anthropologist David Graeber, in Fragments of an Anarchist Anthropology, described the prefigurative politics of those at the 1999 Seattle World Trade Organization protest. When protesters in Seattle chanted, "This is what democracy looks like," they meant to be taken literally. In the best tradition of direct action, they do not only confront a certain form of power, exposing its mechanisms and attempting literally to stop it in its tracks. They did it in a way which demonstrated why the kind of social relations on which it is based were unnecessary. This is why all the condescending remarks about the movement being dominated by a bunch of dumb kids with no coherent ideology completely missed the mark. The diversity was a function of the decentralized form of organization, and this organization was the movement's ideology. Yeah, the optics are so bad. Not the optics, no! Yeah, I'm anti optics. Uh, you shouldn't be pulling over people through optics. You should be pulling over people by being so effective they can't do anything but acknowledge how effective you are. So this goes on to what is called interstitial revolution. So, and this is, kind of more broad than prefiguratism. Interstitial revolution is a theoretical means of societal transformation through progressively and strategically enlarging spaces of social empowerment. Interstitial revolution, or transformation, builds on the concept of prefigurative politics, which has a long history in anti capitalist thinking, going back nearly 200 years in the anarchist tradition. Prefigurative Prefigurativism is neatly summed up by the early 20th century Constitution of the Industrial Workers of the World, the IWW. Shout out to all my wobblies, which declared, by organizing industrially, we are forming the structure of the new society within the old. Yeah, interstitial revolution, that is. So, this has been classically the approach recommended by several theorists of social anarchism, which is what I was talking about earlier. Pierre Joseph Proudhon, based anti Semite, that's a joke. Gustav Landauer, Paul Goodman. Am I back? Am I back? Hello. Okay. Incredible. I like how my Wi Fi has been great all day, and now it's fucked up. Got him. Yeah, I'm front right now. What was the last thing y'all heard? No, I do not have Ethernet. United Front. Goodman. Okay. Paul Goodman and Murray Bookchin. In recent years, prominent analytical Marxists, including John Holloway and Eric Olin Wright, have called attention to the lack of strategy for greater systemic change with prefiguratism. Within prefigurativism. Sorry, I'm like 3 beers deep right now. And have attempted to construct models of societal transformation utilizing interstitial devices as an alternative to the traditional Marxist theory of revolution. And yes, cheers, Rella. I'll drink to that. Crack another one open just because Rilo said cheers. I am not drunk. I am too big of a guy to be drunk from 3 beers. Though it is up. Small Frog said cheers. That's another one. We're at 5 beers now. 3 beers does not get me drunk, Moose. I'm sorry to say. Being 240 pounds, I could drink a 6-pack and be fine. You get tipsy on Stella Artois. Aren't you a little young to be drinking Stella Artois, Moose? Get the feds in here. Get the feds in. 6-pack Smuggy. Yeah. Yeah, I'm 2 of you, Ben Temple. I'm twice the man you ever will be. Even though I'm not a man. Yeah, I didn't know Moose had a wife to beat. Okay. So let's just look at the theory real quick of interstitial revolution. You're unsubscribing? You were subscribed? This fucking guy. Central to the concept of interstitial revolution is the perspective of seeing the state as a complex multitude of institutions organized by a dominant power structure, but not so integrated that it controls all activities within it. Interstitial theorists suggest that within this system, a radically democratic collectives, such as worker-owned cooperatives, have the opportunity to gain a foothold in the cracks of the capitalist system. These egalitarian institutions, working on their own or in tandem through something like federation, can then use their social and economic power along with traditional forms of struggle to outmaneuver and erode limits to their growth imposed by capitalist institutions, thereby creating more space for collective economic and political power. Interstitial theorists state that over time, enough progressive struggles and victories could potentially lead to the overcoming of the capitalist state. Eric Olin Wright points out that there may be boundaries to the growth of an interstitial movement in which the most adept strategies of collective economic and social pressure are not enough to overcome the power of capitalist hegemony. He suggests in this case it may be necessary to resort to a more traditional form of ruptural or insurrectionary revolution. However, he stresses that a substantial network of democratically run organizations is a key foundation to any revolution that wishes to yield a result of deepening democracy and creating the conditions for human flourishing. That makes sense to y'all? An example of an interstitial victory or local victory. I mean, the CNTFAI, pretty much. Same thing with Rojava, and somewhat with the Zapatistas, I'd say. Like, they all partook in interstitial revolution before, as Eric Olin Wright says, resorting to a form. I'm back. We're back. So, um, hi back. Okay. From outer space, I'm gonna go back to the shack, back to the place where the radio's at. Yeah, bro calls it Rojava. How nationalist. Yeah, sorry, Kurdistan. The ANES. Sorry, but I frankly am not particularly entranced by the idea of referring to a country by an acronym. Except for the USA, baby. USA number one, USA on top. But yes, the AANES. Sorry. To any Kurdish people or. We're back. God, this fucking internet, dude.